Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for this O'Reilly Media live course. My name is Ellen Evans and I'll be your facilitator for today's course. We're excited to have you here. We'll be kicking things off shortly, but before we dive into today's content, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items to help you get the most out of today's course. At the top right corner of your screen, you'll see a set of widgets. The two we'll be using most today are the Q&A and attendee chat. Feel free to open those up now if they did not automatically open when you first joined. We encourage you to jump into the chat and be a part of the conversation. This session is being recorded, including any participation from attendees. So if you take part via Q&A, please do not post anything personal such as your email address because that will be included in the recording. Please note that the chat feature should not be used if you're subject to regulated communication restrictions. Also, keep in mind that others in the audience today include fellow professionals, vendors, or even competitors. We hope you'll take advantage of the interactive tools, but please be cautious about what you choose to share. You'll receive an email within 24 to 48 hours with the session recording so you can review or catch up on anything that you missed. You can complete the feedback survey anytime by clicking more in the top right corner. It'll also pop up automatically at the end of today's session. We love to hear your thoughts and thanks for sharing your feedback. And with that, let's get started. I'm going to hand things over to your instructor to kick off today's course. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Welcome everyone to today's Power Query course. My name is Daniil and I'm going to be your instructor today. I'm an independent consultant who wrote the second edition of Collect, Combine, and Transform data using Power Query, as well as the official Power BI exam reference books, which are available to you through your already subscription at no extra charge. If you're interested in Power BI related news, consider following me on LinkedIn or X, which I keep strictly professional. Before we start with the introduction to Power Query, I've got a poll, and I would appreciate it if you could please respond, because it's important for me to know my audience. So maybe I'm going to give it a minute or two. In my past classes, the results split not exactly 50-50, somewhat close to it between Power BI and Excel, although usually Power BI wins. I don't remember Excel winning in this poll. So let's see. I'm going to give it a few more seconds. All right, maybe I'll... No, actually, I do see more people responding. I was about to show the results. Yeah, maybe just a few more seconds still. I got like 50%. Okay, I think this should be okay. So let's see. Yeah, Excel has won. Okay, nice. All right, usually what I say is whichever tool wins, I'm gonna use that tool to do the presentations. So it looks like this time Excel has won. I think it's only fair if I show things in Excel. So maybe let me start my screen share. Yeah, so as you can see, I was going to start this in Power BI, although since Excel has won, I'm probably going to do it in Excel. If you support, if you could please send some positive emoji, I'll appreciate it. Or if you want my doing demos in Power BI, then maybe send a comment in the attendee chat or something. I'm happy with either tool, either Power BI or Excel. They are very, very similar with just some small differences? No, I've got a thumbs down. So you don't want Excel? You want this in Power BI? I'm okay with either. No, actually, more positive emoji than one thumbs down. Okay, so look, in any case, the interface is very similar between Power BI and Excel. Yes, Power Query in the Power BI service does differ visually because they've refreshed the interface and they haven't done it in Power BI desktop. So I'll just use Excel so it's fair, because usually that's how it is. Whichever tool wins, I use that one. So, okay. All right. Thanks for responding to the poll. That's good. So we've got 3 segments in today's course, progressively getting more advanced. In the first section, we'll discuss the basics of Power Query, what it is, where you would use it, and where you'd use another tool maybe. Then we'll cover connecting to data and data profiling in Power Query. In the second segment, we'll cover basic transformations and ways to combine tables in Power Query, as well as parameters. And in the final section, we'll talk about the M language a bit, complex types that are available, such as lists and records, as well as custom functions. And just to manage the expectations, as you may have noticed, there's no camera feed in this course. There are going to be demos. There are not going to be any separate exercises, although if you want to follow along, then you may do so. You just need to download the course materials under resources. There are 2 links which lead to the same zip archive. Some students reported that GitHub is blocked in their organization, so I also uploaded to Azure, and I hope at least one link works. So you'll need to download the archive and then unzip it, and it has 2 files. One is the Excel file, and the other is a folder with a CSV file, so nothing complex. That's what I'm going to be using. All right, let's start with the first section. So we'll start with Power Query overview. And just before I start doing demos, I'll talk just a bit. Power Query is a data extraction and transformation tool that is available in Microsoft Excel, Power BI, and Fabric, as well as some other places, such as Power Apps. Power Query has a graphical user interface that allows you to perform most things you'll need. And when there's no relevant button in the user interface, you can write your own code in the language called M, also known as Power Query formula language. How it's different from other ETL tools? First and foremost, although it's not unique, but just to underline this, Power Query has a graphical user interface built with a business or data analyst in mind, as opposed to some data engineer or a programmer. So it's for people who not only prepare data, but also analyze it themselves. Loading destinations of Power Query are a bit limited. You cannot write to files like with Alteryx, for example. I hear a comment in the attendee chat saying that voice is very low, which... okay, Ellen, thank you for responding. All right, back to how Power Query is different. So yeah, I was saying that load destinations are different between Power Query and other ETL tools. And by the way, this is how Power Query and Power BI and Excel are different by loading destination. So in Power BI, you load data to the data model if you load it. And in Excel, you can load it to the data model as well, which is Power Pivot, or you can load it onto an Excel sheet, or you can load it to even a pivot table. And that's, I would say, little known fact. You can load more than 1 million rows into Excel. If you don't load it onto a worksheet, you don't even have to load it into the data model. You can still load it to a pivot table cache. And so that way you have more than 1 million rows without Power Pivot. I would say not that many people know that. If this is something of interest, I can probably demo this later. Yeah, let me know in the chat. And one more thing that is strength of Power Query is somewhat expected, I would say. It's a great integration with Microsoft products, because this is part of Office as well as Fabric, and as a result, Power BI. Then it's all Microsoft, so it can connect to things like SharePoint very well. So for example, Alteryx, which is another widely used ETL tool, cannot connect as easily to SharePoint as far as I'm aware. So if your company uses Microsoft a lot, then yeah, Power Query would be nice to use, because yeah, it's going to be easier to integrate your various data sources. And Power Query has over 100 connectors. So connectors are ways to connect to different data sources. And Microsoft keeps adding new connectors. You can connect to files, folders, databases, APIs, and various other things, such as online services. Once you connect to data, you can transform, clean, and combine it in various ways. And by the way, another significant difference between Power BI and Excel, although for the purposes of our course it doesn't matter, is that in Power BI, you usually have more connectors available compared to Excel. So Power Query in Power BI is a tiny bit more advanced, I would say, in terms of connectors, at least. Okay, so maybe let me describe the user interface a bit. So one, I would say, challenge of Power Query, unfortunately, is its kind of branding. If you're in Excel, you will not see Power Query mentioned explicitly. Like, yes, you have get data, but then it's not really called Power Query here. See, it's just called get and transform data. How would you know it's Power Query? Well, you wouldn't, unless you knew it in advance somehow. So you have to click something like get data, and then you have launch Power Query editor. Yes, that does say Power Query editor. So you see it's a bit hidden, unfortunately. Anyway, let's open it. Interesting. I might have to go to Power BI after all, because this is not exactly right. You see, the buttons are oversized. Something's off with my Power Query editor. Okay, maybe let me give it another chance. Just a moment. I'll try to open it in a different window. See if it works. Okay, now I know I said Excel has one, and therefore I'm gonna do it in Excel. This user interface, it's not right. Like, the buttons shouldn't be this way, and see, some items are cut off. Okay, sorry, I'll have to use Power BI, unfortunately. But like I said, the differences are minimal between user interface in Excel and Power BI Desktop. You see in Power BI, no such problems. The buttons are okay. Oh well. Okay, still, I'm gonna try to describe it now. So maybe first, let me connect to a file so that there is something that I can describe. So I'm gonna close this maybe and select get data, and then text CSV. And from downloads, targets, I'll just pick the first file, this one. It shows me a preview, and the actual file that I'm connecting to is not very important. What's important is that later it will show me the preview of the file, so I'll not select load, I will select transform data now. Okay, now I've got this file in Power Query Editor. So Power Query Editor is a separate window, and as you can see here at the top, it actually says Power Query Editor again only after you open it, but that's okay. So I've got this file now. Let me describe the various parts of the user interface. Like in other Microsoft products such as Excel or Word, etc., we've got the ribbon at the top, and this ribbon has different tabs such as Home, Transform, Add Column, and so on. We will be using some of these tabs later in the course, and I'll be describing them as we go. So that's one part. Another part is the queries pane here on the left. Currently, it shows just one query. Later, when we connect to more data sources, we will see more. These queries, when you load them, they become tables in Power BI or in Excel. Not every query is a table, as you will see later, and not every query needs to be loaded. So we'll see that later as well. Probably the most important part is in the middle here. It's the preview area. So it has a preview of our data, and it's important to understand that it is indeed a preview. So in this case, our file is very small. It has 2 columns and 3 rows plus headers, so everything fits onto the screen. It's not uncommon, or I would say rather more common, to have more columns than fit onto the screen. And it's not uncommon to have so many rows that they don't fit onto the screen. In this case, you'll just get a preview. You may have the first, say, 1,000 rows or something like that, although you will have all columns. And it's done in such a way so it's quick to transform data. So, for example, when you're working with, say, tables in SQL or something, then Power Query just gets the first, say, 1,000 rows. And then if you need to do some transformations, then while you're in Power Query Editor, you are working with the preview data, so just the first 1,000 rows. Once you are ready to load the data, then your transformations will be applied to the entire data set. But they're not applied every time you do something. So this way, it's quicker for you to make edits. Now this preview area also has a formula bar at the top. It's something that I think now is visible by default, although if you don't see it, then you can enable it in the View tab of the ribbon. It's yeah, here, formula bar. If you don't see it, I highly encourage you to enable it, because the formula bar shows the formula of the current transformation, and it's in a language called Power Query Formula Language, also known as M, even though it's very different from VBA or Excel formula language and many other things. It's still, I would argue, readable, as in the function names, they can be read without preparation. They have some meaningful names, such as table.transform column types. And I'll show you how they're constructed just a bit later. For now, I just wanted to point out the last part of the user interface. It's query settings. It has the query name as well as applied steps. And applied steps are recorded whenever you do some transformation. And then you can actually step through each one of them. So for example, I've just connected to a file, and Power Query tried to be helpful, and it tried to do some transformations that made sense, which is why we have source and promoted headers and change type. So if I go to the first step, source, you will see in the formula bar, it says csv.document, then file.contents, then the file path for my file, and then some extra options, which we can ignore for our purposes. Actually, even if I get rid of them, in this case, it will not break. They're just extra ones that Power Query included by default. And so this is the file as is. Then Power Query detected that the first row is headers. So the next step is promoted headers. By the way, notice that when it says table.promote headers, the first parameter in the function is called source here, and that source is the same source as here. So they're actually the same thing. Why? That's because by default, each subsequent transformation is built on top of the previous one. And if we go to the next step, change type, we see promoted headers here, which is the same as here. Again, we use the previous step as the basis of our transformation. So I'm showing you this just so you know how to read those applied steps, how to interpret them, like what those parameter names mean. So now you know that by default, the latest step will use the previous step as the foundation. Okay, so that's the user interface. And I've told you about the overall context of Power Query. So it's an ETL tool in several, Microsoft products. So in this case, we're using Power BI, although if my Excel wasn't glitchy, then I would use that one. Really though, the user interface between Power BI and Excel in terms of Power Query is very, very similar, with some small differences, such as loading destinations. So just because I'm showing Power BI doesn't mean that you cannot apply it to Excel. Okay, so that's overview. Something that you will see later in the course is that, as I mentioned already, yes, in the user interface, you've got buttons for most actions you will need on a daily basis, although in some cases, maybe there isn't some, like maybe some transformation is missing there. In that case, you'll be able to write your own code, which we'll see later how it's done in later section. Okay, maybe now I'm gonna try to connect some more data. So I've already connected to one file. And you may remember I had some yearly files in my targets folder. So if I go to targets here, I have 3 files. I've already connected to one, and you may want to do something similar in real life when you have some periodic files, such as, say, daily or monthly. In this case, I'm using yearly files just for simplicity. What I'm saying applies to periodic files in general. So you could connect to each file individually if you wanted to have them all. And yeah, I can do that. Maybe a new query, text CSV. (2021). I'll use the default parameters. And yeah, I can see the values are different. So I can combine them into one table. And I can do it. Later, I'll show you how to combine tables together in different ways. For now, I will not do it. Instead, I'll just point out that, yes, I have seen people do something like this, like connecting to different files individually, then combining them, and then when there is a new file, they update their query to get the new file. Yes, it's possible to do it this way. It's not optimal in terms of manual effort involved, as in whenever there is a new file, you need to update your code. And then, okay, what if there is a new file and you are on holiday or something and somebody else relies on your report? That's not ideal, right? So there's a better way, and that is connecting to a folder. Let me show you new query. I just right-click, new query, and since folder is not here, I'll just set more. If you attended any of my previous courses on Power BI, like analyzing data with Power BI, then you have seen me do this. So this is just a small overlap. The rest will be different. Okay, here I need to navigate to the folder, targets. Okay. It's just a preview of the files. Let's like combine and transform data. We can use the default parameters. Okay. Now I've got all the files in one folder. And this is way better because if there is a new file and I refresh my data, then it will come in automatically. As you can see, the query is a bit more involved because there are just many more steps. Plus, there are some helper queries here. And yet, all of this was done by Power Query automatically. So it's not something I had to do. I just had to click combine and transform. That's all. If I want to do some further transformations, then I can do it. In this case, I'm going to leave it as is, although in my other courses, I do show how to work with this kind of data. Okay, maybe let me get rid of these two queries because I will not need them. I just wanted you to show, I just wanted to show you how you can get data from multiple files as long as they share the same structure, because this is very common to do. Actually, what I've also seen was people have one report, and then every time there's like a new file, they change the file they connect to, and so they have a separate report for, say, January, February, March, April, May, June, like one each. Whereas what they could have done was connecting to a folder and getting all data and then just adding a filter on month so that in a single report you have all months you want. If you want just the latest month, that's also possible. So here's what you can do, because it's also fairly common. Let's go to the source tab. Oh, actually, no, let me get rid of everything. New query, more folder. Again, I will use the same folder as before, targets, except this time, instead of combine and transform data, I will select transform. So last time I selected combine and transform data, and it combined all files into one. This time, because I want just the latest file, I want to select transform data. Select transform data. So now you see the files are not combined. So what I need to do is, okay, you have to have some kind of way to know which file is the latest. In my case, it's kind of easy. I just sort by name in descending order, and that's how I know that this is the latest file. The first one will be the latest file. In your case, it might be different. It will depend on your circumstances. Even if there is some, involved logic in, say, extracting the date from the name, it still can be done. It's just that for me, it makes no sense to show all possible cases because there are many. In any case, later, after this course, you should be able to apply the necessary logic for your file. So in my case, like I said, it's simple. I'm going to sort by name in descending order. And now 2022 is the first one. So I can just click binary here. And that's it. Now, I said that's it, and I was wrong. I made a mistake. That's okay. I'll show you why I've made a mistake. So if I go to this step here after sorted rows, this one, you can see here it says name equals 2022. So actually, if I had another file, it wouldn't matter that there's a new file, say 2025 as an example. It wouldn't matter that it's the latest, because in this query now I have this file name hard-coded. So I need to undo all this. I'm going to keep the sorted row step. The rest I'm going to get rid of. So I'm going to right-click this step and select delete until end. Yes, delete. Good. Now, what I need to do is I need to select the first binary. How do I do it without hard coding 2022? Actually, I didn't hard code anything. Power Query did it. It's just that Power Query needs some way to uniquely identify which file I was clicking. In this case, it used a file name, just because of the way this connector works, in the folder connector. What I can do is I can get the first row. How? I can just add 0 in curly braces, like this. So that's how I would do it. And then I can click binary here, or another way, because there are many ways usually to do the same thing, is to add a new step. So I just click this FX button to add a custom step. As you can see, it added custom one step here. And I'm going to wrap this into table the first. This. It also does the very same thing. It gives me the first row. Then I can click binary. Let me see. So after table.first, Power Query added 4 steps. let's go to the next step. So this time, 2022 is not hard-coded. So if I go here and just manufacture 2025, let's say, and go back to Power Query. Now, if I refresh preview, let's see, will it change to 2025? Yes. This means it's working as expected. So yeah, this is how you can get the latest file. So you need to sort rows, then get the first file by using table at first, or 0 in curly braces, or there are other ways. And then you can operate on this file. In this case, as you can see, there are no helper queries. That's because we're just getting one file. Okay, so that's how you can get files from the same folder when they have the same structure. It's a pretty common task. Something else I'll show you is how you can connect to a database, and I'll talk about native queries and query folding. So I've got a database locally, and unfortunately it's not something that you can repeat because it's just not possible to include a database into course files. I installed SQL Server Express onto my machine, which is free, and then I restored some databases. So that's how I have it. Anyway, the principles are the same. If at work you have some kind of database, you can connect to it, and your experience may be similar to mine. If you have SQL Server, then yeah, it will be the same, although different databases work in slightly different ways. Anyway, with SQL Server, which is rather popular, it should be similar as in, say, MySQL or Postgres and some other databases. So I'm going to select SQL Server. Actually, I don't remember the address. Maybe it's like this, SQL Express. Let's see if it's going to work. Okay, actually, it worked. Okay, so when you connect to some SQL Server, you just provide the server name. You may also provide the database name. I happen to have two databases. Doesn't matter which one I have, which one I get. Maybe let me try product from AdventureWorks. Yeah, this will do. I'm gonna select OK. Before I do, actually, just wanted to point out, if you connect to an Excel file, then your experience will be very similar. Actually, if you attended my intro course or analyzing course, you would have seen me connect to an Excel file, and you would also see the navigator window, just like here. We do have a list of objects that are available, and on the right we see the preview, so very similar. Anyway, I wanted to show something different that is unique to databases, so let's select OK. So we've got dim product. Now, I wanted to show you query folding, meaning Power Query can translate some operations into the native language of the data source, although once the fold breaks, subsequent operations will not fold at all. So when you do something in Power Query and it gets translated into the native language of the data source, that's called query folding. So let me show you what I mean. Let's say there are some columns here that I can fill around. Okay, maybe color. Color is good. Let's find, I don't know, red or something. Seems, okay, here it is, red. Actually, I could have filtered like this. That would be way quicker. Okay, let's unselect. And I'm going to select red and select OK. Okay, so I have just red products. I have 63 rows here. In the lower left corner, it shows how many columns I have, how many rows I have. In this case, it's a small table. After filtering, just 63 rows. This will do for our example. So I've placed a filter, color equals red, as the formula bar shows. Now, the important part is here. If I right-click filtered rows, then you can see View Native Query here. Let's click it. And the native query is like this. Select something, something, and then there is this where clause. So yes, we are connecting to dim product, and then there is the where clause. So the filter that we have in Power Query is translated into SQL. Now, if I had some more operations, for example, I don't know, let's select some columns here, like this. Let's right-click this, View Native Query. See, the native query is now much shorter. So instead of getting the whole table and then transforming it in memory, Power Query doesn't get the whole table. Instead, it sends a query to the data source to retrieve only the data that it needs. And that's only possible because these transformations can be translated into the native language. Not all transformations can be. Let me show you some examples. Okay, maybe, yeah, this will do. French product name. So I can transform this and trim, and this should also work. Yes, View Native Query works. You can see it has trim here. Now, what is probably not gonna work is cleaning. Transform, clean. Let's see. Indeed, it's now grayed out. Now, let me show you the effect of query folding when the query fold breaks. So up to trim text, it is working. Although if I move clean text, say here, then filtered rows, which previously was folding, now doesn't fold. So when working with data sources that support query folding, you should do as much as you can before doing operations that don't fold. So this clean text example is simple because I knew that it doesn't fold, although in other cases you may have to check for yourself. Also, some people may be interested in whether you can write your own queries. Yes, you can. So maybe let me get this one. No, maybe this one. Yeah, let's copy this just for, speed purposes. And I'm gonna maybe duplicate this and get rid of this. Okay, and select this cogwheel. Okay, in advanced options, I can write my SQL statement. Okay, maybe let me do blue just to make it more interesting. Select the, yes, when you write your own query, you have to provide the database name. Yes, I forgot. Actually, I forgot that. Here is Adventure Works DW 2022. Okay. All right. So you see now in formula bar, it's part of the query. Okay. Now let me see if I now do something, will it still fold? Okay, maybe, yeah, standard cost, I don't know, above 500, greater than 500. Will it work? And it looks like it's not working. However, just so you know, it is, I think it should be possible to make it fold. I just forgot. Let me show you how I would go about solving this problem. Power query, query folding with native queries. Query folding on native queries. Yep, that's what I'm looking for. All right, I need to use value.nativeQuery. Enable folding.true. Okay, let me just try to use this option here. It's probably not gonna work. I'll still try. Yeah, that's right. That's okay. It's just that I need to redo this query. Okay, so I'll need to connect to the database. Yes. Then I need to add an extra step, value the query like this. Okay. Okay. Now, yep, it still doesn't work. Yes. Now, if I go here, just copy this bit after the query. Yep, see, now it works. So it's not something I expect you to remember. I just wanted to show that when something doesn't fold with native queries, it's sometimes possible to make it fold. So let's see. Yeah, so this is my original query that I wrote. And then it has some where clause on top of it that I added by using the user interface. Yep. Okay, so that's, I think it should be enough with databases. I also wanted to show you, while show native query or view native query is not always visible, sometimes operations still fold. So let me show you an example with OData. New source, OData feed. And in this case, I'm going to use some, what is it called? Some OData feed. Maybe let me find it. OData feed samples. I think north wind would do if it's available. Okay, this one. Yeah. Okay, let's copy this and go to Power Query here. Select OK. Okay, let's use maybe invoices. Yeah, this will do. Okay, now I'm gonna filter something. For example, ship city equals Berlin. Okay, filtered rows shows view native query as grayed out. Okay, so it looks like it's not working. However, let's diagnose. So this diagnose will do some query diagnostics, and it will show me some extra stuff, not all of which I'm going to use. Let's just try this. So diagnose. So you see it says recording traces. Okay, now it's done pretty quickly, I would say. Let's see just the aggregated one. And if we scroll across, there should be, yep, data source query. Yeah, good. Maybe let's try to find the last available one. This one. Yep, here it is. Great, excellent. Exactly what I was looking for. So here's the request. See, get. And the important part is that there's this filter. Filter equals ship city EQ Berlin. So when we filtered ship city by using the user interface, we created this filtered rows step. When we right click, it says view native queries grayed out, so supposedly not folding. However, it's still folding, as we can see here. So some operations, even though it looks like they're not folding, that's not the case. They are folding. All right, so that's what I wanted to mention about connecting to files and folders and databases. Next, let's talk about profiling the data a bit. When you're analyzing data, it's often useful to profile it to reveal potential patterns, distribution of values, and data quality. In Power Query, there are 3 options that can help you with data profiling. I mean, options in the user interface. So one is column quality. Let me show you. I'll just use invoices maybe. Or actually, dim product will be quicker, I think. So in the, I think, yeah, tools, no, view, yep, it's view. So it's all here. So the view tab, and it's all here. So let me tick column quality. So column quality will show you the proportion of errors and empty values. Empty strings and nulls are counted as empty values. Now, we also have column distribution. So this will show a small column chart of values distribution and show how many distinct and unique values there are. And just in case it seems like distinct and unique are the same thing, no, a unique value in this context is a value that appears only once. So for example, with product key, you can see 63 distinct and 63 unique. That's because each value appears just once. Whereas with product alternate key, there are 38 distinct values and only 19 of them are unique. And sometimes there are no unique values, like with this product subcategory key. We also have column profile. So it will show a chart like column distribution with visible x-axis and labels and some more statistics. And not always the column chart could be bar chart, as you can see, and the statistics will depend on the data type. So for numeric, we can calculate things like, you know, average and so on. For text, not really, although we still can get first and last values. We don't have to have just one of them. I mean, one of these profiling views open. We can have all of them open. I just didn't want to obstruct the view that much because you see it's quite a bit. You can change how the chart is displayed, by the way, I mean with column profile. So there are these 3 dots. You can group by not value but text length. Yes, in this case it's not very interesting. If we go to some other column, let me see. Yeah, actually, I think this one's might be good. Oh, no. I might need a date, maybe. Date column. Let's see. It should be somewhere. Yeah, this is good. Yeah, so when looking at this, we can group it instead of the value as is, we can group it by, oh, actually it's only yearly, but that's okay. Maybe month. In this case, it's all July, or week of year. Also the same. Day. Always one. Day of week. Yep, good. At least the 1st of July falls on different days of the week in different years. So yeah, I'm just saying, when you're doing data profiling, you can look at it slightly differently. Now, additionally, once you're comfortable with writing your own formulas, you can also use the table.profile function in Power Query, which will show some statistics for all table columns at once. Let me show you an example. Maybe, yeah, this will do. So let's say I have some query, and I want to do some profiling. Let me add a custom step. Here it is, and I'll just wrap it in table.profile, like this. Yeah, because it's a local data source, it's pretty quick. So on rows, we now have columns, color, product key, and so on. Yeah, not in the same order as they were. Doesn't matter. We have the min and max, and we have the average, standard deviation, count, null count, and desync count. So we've got all of these statistics for all columns at once, as opposed to my having to click through each column and looking at it, which can be quite handy for column with numeric values, in case you want to check whether the values are in acceptable ranges or something. If you're doing data profiling, you would know what you would be looking for. Okay, I think that's more or less all I wanted to say about data profiling. Before we do a break, if you have questions, please post them in Q&A. For now, there are a couple things in Q&A. One, it was a comment on the sound, so I would expect that's resolved now. Okay, the other was, we are currently trying to create a custom Power BI connector, which is using Power Query, as far as I know. The SDK, I think it's Software Development Kit, I could be wrong. So the SDK is not very good, and there haven't been any recent updates. Do you perhaps know if they are still working on it? I'm not very knowledgeable in this space. My best guess would be that they may have deprioritized custom connector development in favor of some other Fabric things. So it seems like Fabric has got a bit more investment at the moment. Not that Power BI or Power Query are going away at all, no. It's just that for custom connectors, which wasn't a very popular thing to do, I'm not sure it's getting much more investment at the moment. And just for the benefit of others, so custom connectors allow you to connect to data sources for which there is currently no existing connector. So it could be, say, online service, or something could be, say, a wrapper for an API to make it a bit more user-friendly. So for example, there is HubSpot. It's an online service. Currently, it has API. It's working, and as far as I know, there is no connector available. So you would create your own custom connector for it to make connecting to it, more user friendly. So that's an example of when you would do it. So yeah, the short answer is probably still working, just not as actively. All right. I think yeah, that these are all questions for now. Any other questions? Yeah, please let me know. Otherwise, maybe let's take a break. Maybe 10 minutes should be sufficient, I hope. And then, yeah, we'll continue after the break. All right, welcome back. I'm gonna start a pulse check to see how many of you are back. If you could please respond to the pulse check, I'll appreciate it. It should be somewhere. Sorry, unfortunately, I have a slightly different interface than students, and there should be some kind of button next to a pulse check. Yeah, I'll appreciate it if you respond. If you respond, please. In the meantime, I'll restart my screen share. Maybe I'll give a few more seconds for the pulse check. And we'll continue in just a few seconds. Yeah, previously I've heard that the place where the pulse check is not very obvious, so I understand why not everyone's responding. Yeah, anyway, quite a few have responded. Thank you. I'm gonna stop the pulse check, and we'll continue with section 2. So before we start section 2, I wanted to just quickly recap section 1. So we've had a quick overview of what Power Query is. It's an ETL tool in Excel, and Power BI, Fabric, and some other places. We saw where you can find Power Query in Excel and Power BI. Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't clearly say Power Query where the buttons are. You have to know where it is. It doesn't matter. After you open the Power Query editor, at least it does say Power Query, and in any case, it doesn't change anything. The fact that it doesn't say Power Query on the button. We saw that you can connect to many different data sources. So I did some demos on, like I connected to a couple of files. I connected to a folder. I've shown you how to combine files from a folder. I've shown you how to get the latest file, just the latest file from a folder. I've shown you how to connect to a database and how query folding works with native queries. I've shown you connecting to an OData feed, and you saw that even if it says that, query, even if it says view native query is not active, query folding may still be happening, which you can confirm by using query diagnostics if it's important to you, because maybe you're working with some slow data sources or just large volumes of data, and it's important for you to make your queries as efficient as possible. So in that case, yes, you would try to fold as much as possible. We also talked about how you can profile data in Power Query by using the user interface, as well as table.profile, which is now on the screen. It's just a function in Power Query that you can use with tables. And that concluded section 1. Now we're in section 2. We'll learn some common data transformation operations, starting with the basic ones. We'll also look at different ways to combine tables, as well as how and where we can use parameters. So let's start with basic transformations. I'll maybe connect to another file for now, just a new query Excel workbook, and I'll use the wide world importers Excel file, just because it's rich in columns that can be transformed. Maybe, yeah, let me just get everything just in case. Like this, okay. All right, okay, maybe we'll start with, I don't know, customer. Yeah, customer should do. Yeah, so you have already seen me applying filters. Could be done, let's say, if I'm interested in filtering category, I could select this filter button here and see the available values. Like in this case, it's just 2 values, so not very interesting. Yet, I wanted to show you some different ways to filter data. Maybe let me try to find something that's just slightly more interesting than 2 values. Maybe it's going to be city or like in stock item. Yeah, stock item should be good. Okay, so we've got, I think there should be color here somewhere. Yep, color. Okay, so yeah, one way is to select the filter button and tick the things you want. There is another way, just quicker, only if you see it in the user interface. For example, I can scroll and see black, for example. I can right click and say text filters and equals. if I want to change it, say blue or something, I can just change it in the formula bar to make it quicker. If I'm not satisfied, I can get rid of my step, of course. There are other operators I can use. Let me just find gray. Yeah, gray is good because we have gray here and we have steel gray here. So if I want everything that contains gray, I can right-click gray and say text filters, contains. So now I have both gray and steel gray. Now this is just a user interface way of doing things. There's a different way also with the filter button, although arguably it's also a user interface. So I can select this filter button and there's text filters and I could select contains, gray. I can leave it as is, I mean, okay, or I can make my condition a bit more complex, for example, or begins with BL. So it's black and blue. Let's see what the result is going to be. Select OK. So we've got black, blue, gray, and steel gray, because our condition was either it contains gray or it starts with BL. And that's just a text filter with other data types. You could set other filter conditions such as greater than 5 for numbers, for example, or with dates, you could set conditions such as is in current month, and so on. It will depend on the column data type. So that's filtering. Another thing you may have seen me do is removing columns. And there are also a couple of ways of doing it. So for example, let's say I don't want, actually let's go to city. It will be simpler because there are only 4 columns here, just easier to see. So let's say I don't want state province key. I can right click it, and actually let me get rid of profiling. I can right click it and remove, or I can just select it and press the delete key on my keyboard, and that's the same thing. If you read the formula, you can see it's table.remove columns, and then it lists state province key explicitly. You should be careful with this in case your underlying data may change. So for example, let's say you receive files from someone, some data producer, and there is a column that is, I don't know, long, some long text that you're not using anyway, and you're deleting it in your queries. And one day you mentioned to the data producer that actually this column is not useful, you're always getting rid of it. And so the data producer says, no, actually this column bothers me as well, so maybe I'm gonna remove it from the files that I produce. So then they remove this column, and because you have this step, table.remove columns, which explicitly references the remove column, with the new file, depending on how you structure your query, you may get an error. So for example, if you're connecting to the latest file and your query expects this column because it expects to remove it, then you'll get an error. It will say something like this column is not found. Let me just fabricate this error quickly. I will go one step back and remove this column again. Then I will go to the next step, which is also removing that same column. And here's the error. The column state province key of the table wasn't found. Yes, in this case, I just fabricated this error message, although I did it so that you know what it looks like. Because you would get the same error if some column was missing from a file you were connecting to. There are a couple of ways to address this. One way is to keep this step like this and add another parameter. So after the list of columns, because braces, as we will see later, signify a list, because it could be more than one column that we're deleting, you can add a parameter, a comma, and then missing field dot ignore. Except, and even though we are removing this non-existing column, there's no error. It's because we provided another parameter, missing field dot ignore. So even though there is a field that is missing and we're trying to remove it, we're ignoring this error. So that's one way. This way is good in case you are removing some columns and you still want to get those new columns that are added to your file. So for example, in the same example as before, let's say you are talking to this data producer and he says, yes, that column bothers me as well, so I'm gonna remove it. However, I'm gonna add another column, just so you know, because these files are also consumed by someone else who was interested in a new column, so I'm gonna add a new column to those files, just heads up. Okay, if you're doing it this way, if you're removing a column and then you're using this parameter, missing field.ignore, then you will not get an error because you're trying to remove a column that doesn't exist anymore, and you will still get a new column. So for example, let me just go here and I'll add column, index column, just for the sake of it. New column, index. So if I now go to this step, the index column is here. So it's something that I've added just a couple of steps before. By the way, the index column is something I'm going to talk about just a bit later. It's just an example of a new column. So yes, we still have this column. Now, here's another situation. Let me get rid of all these. Let's say it's not that you don't want state province key. You actually want city key, city and location, and nothing else. In this case, there is another option, and that is selecting these columns. So I just held the shift key and clicked location to select these three columns. Then I'm going to right click one of the column headers and select remove other columns. Now, if we look at the formula bar, you will see that the function is now different. It's not table.remove columns, it's table.select columns. And the columns we're selecting are listed here. So there is nothing that talks about state province key. Therefore, if we delete it and we go to the next step, there's no error at all. We don't need to use any parameter to avoid the error. It's because we don't expect this column in our query at all. Now, you may wonder, okay, what's going to happen if, for example, the, city column is removed? Let's fabricate this. So I'm going to remove this city column. By the way, notice that when I remove the column, it's been added to this list of columns to remove. So whenever possible, Power Query would try to group the same operations together. Anyway, let's go to the next step. And there's an error. The column city of the table wasn't found. Okay, how do we address this? We can use a similar parameter as before. Missing field dot use null as an example. in this case, we will still have the city column, it's just that it will be null. Now, when is this important to you? I mean, when would this be appropriate? This could be appropriate if there are some columns that you expect no matter what, because Power BI, as an example, treats column additions and removals differently. If there is a missing column, then it will raise an error. If there's a new column, then it will allow it to be added to the data model. And so it may be important for you to have the same columns to avoid refresh errors. So if this is the case, then this is an option that you may use. So even if your data producer removes a column, it doesn't matter because you still have that schema. Now, you may ask me, okay, what happens in case there is a new column? Let's just go here and also add index column. And let's go to the last step. And here we don't see the index column. Why? Again, because we're selecting some columns explicitly. So instead of removing them as previously, we're selecting some columns. So the columns that are added later, they are not carried over. So these are a couple of different ways to remove or select columns, and which way is the right one will depend on your circumstances or business requirements. All right, now let me talk about removing duplicates. Let me get rid of all this. Yeah, I think CT might be a good one. Yeah, so there are several ways to remove duplicates. So CT key is unique, so there are no duplicates. However, I think CT, if I'm not mistaken, has some duplicates, because you could have the same city name in different, say, states. If I recall correctly, there are like 20 Springfields in the US or something like that. Yeah, out of curiosity, maybe let's search. I don't think that's the complete list of cities in the US. I'm just curious. So equals, and I'm going to change it to Springfield. Actually, even Greenfields, there are 42 points. Let's see about Springfield. No, because, okay, it's probably not the real data. So that's why there is no Springfield here. However, as you can see, there are different Greenfields, and they are different. I mean, some of them are different because they have different locations. So how do you get rid of duplicates? So in this case, maybe it's like a toy example, not what you would actually do. In some cases, you still may want to remove duplicates, so I'll show you a couple of different ways. So let's say you are interested in keeping unique cities. You can right-click city and select remove duplicates. Now this creates a new step that uses the table.desync function, and here there's just city. As you may have guessed from the braces, it's possible to remove duplicates based on more than one column. For example, not just city, let's do location. Oh, actually, something I should have done. Let's get rid of duplicates. Yes, I just forgot to point out. So we've got 655 rows. Let's try to remember this, 655. If I, instead of just city, also hold the control key and select location, and now remove duplicates, I've got 839. So what this means is, yes, there are some duplicate city names, although they are legitimate duplicates, because once you add location, you will have more combinations. I would just wonder how come we have the same location and city name with different city keys. Maybe it's just the nature of data. It's possible. One other thing I wanted to show you, which maybe is not particularly applicable with this specific table, although might be useful to you later. If you want to remove duplicates on the entire table, then you can click this button here, and select remove duplicates. Like I was saying, because city key is unique, then we've got no duplicates. Otherwise, it would remove duplicates from like all combinations of values from all columns. You can also see the duplicate values. For example, if I select city, and actually I don't have it here. However, if I go to Home tab and select Reduce Rows, Keep Rows, here I have Keep Duplicates. By the way, you may not see this Reduce Rows button. It's just that it's something that I see because my screen size is small. Otherwise, you may have just keep rows and remove rows together. All right, keep rows, keep duplicates, and yeah, this gives me just the duplicates. See, the formula is quite elaborate. Once you get more comfortable with Power Query, you will be able to read this a bit more easily. For now, I just wanted to show you that it is possible to either remove or keep duplicates. Okay. Okay, something else that may be of interest. So you can extract values in different ways. For example, let's say there is a location here, and I would like to extract latitude and longitude. I hope that's what it is, although it doesn't really matter. Let's say I'm interested in extracting these numerical values into different columns. So I'll show you a few ways. Probably one way is to extract between delimiters. You could say that latitude is between the opening parentheses and the space. So let's try that. Add column, extract text between delimiters. So the start delimiter will be opening parentheses, and the end delimiter is going to be space. Yeah, in advanced option, I could specify whether I want to skip any delimiters, start or end. No, in this case, I'll just keep it as is. So, okay. And here on the right, yep, I've got this value. It is text though, so depending on whether this works for me, I can keep it as is, or I can change the data type. To change the column data type, just need to select this button here and select the right data type. So ABC means text. I can change it to, say, decimal number. So this makes it a number. For now, maybe let's do it. One thing that I would encourage you to do is to have fewer steps, or at least not to add steps unnecessarily. When we extracted values between delimiters, there was no option to specify the new column name. So instead, what we can do is we can either rename it like this, which adds a new step, which I think is not ideal, or let me just copy this. We can change the formula, and I encourage you to change formulas for small things like this. So instead of text between delimiters, just write latitude, and here it is. See, there is no new step, and the formula is cleaner, easier to maintain, I would argue. Also, what I encourage you to do is to have descriptive step names. So instead of inserted text between delimiters, let's rename it to extracted latitude. I think that's way better. It talks about what I'm doing. And I can, of course, extract longitude in the same way. So extract text between delimiters. Oh, actually, this time, yes, I will need to say that I want to skip one delimiter. Because if I do it like this, by default, between a space and closing parentheses, see, the result will be wrong. Yep, that's not right. So I'm going to go back to the settings. In advanced options, I will specify that I want to skip one delimiter, one start delimiter. Select OK. Yep, this is now way better. Again, instead of text between delimiters, let's call it longitude. And also let's rename the step. Extracted longitude, like this. So it's fairly clean now, I would say. Instead of, imagine, I renamed a column here, and then I would rename it here, and Power Query wouldn't be able to group it unless I did it in one step myself. So fewer steps makes it a bit easier to manage. Now, that's just one way to extract those values, latitude and longitude. There's actually another way, which is often the case. Often there is more than one way. So what I could do is instead of adding two new columns, I could transform this one. So this location, let's transform it so that I only have text between these two delimiters, parentheses. And instead of add column, I'm going to work with the transform tab. So you may have noticed that between transform and add column, there are a lot of similarities. And intuitively, you may have already guessed that while the operation is the same, add column will add a new column, whereas transform will modify the column in place. So it will not be adding any new columns. So this time, let's select transform and extract text between delimiters. It's going to be between parentheses, like this. And this time, let's split the column. So split column by delimiter. By the way, there are various other ways in which you can split, say by number of characters or by positions, or even by using case or digit to non-digit and the other way around. In our case, it's pretty simple, by delimiter. And here's an example of Power Query trying to be helpful and just falling just a tiny bit short. So it tried to guess the delimiter we would like to split by, and it thought it should be a full stop. Nope, that's not the case. Actually, we want to split by space. Whether I select leftmost, rightmost, or each occurrence of the delimiter doesn't matter, because I know we only have one space, although if we had more spaces in values, it would make a difference. Select OK. And yeah, we've got two columns now. The difference between the previous way is that, see now, Power Query also changed the data types automatically, which I may or may not want, depending on my business requirements. Let's just be consistent with the previous way and get rid of this step so that it's kept as text. And again, instead of renaming these two columns as separate steps, let's do it in the formula bar. So instead of location.1, it's going to be latitude. Instead of location.2, it's going to be longitude, like this. Okay. Oh, and again, even after I renamed the formula bar, it still changed the data type. So really wanted to do it. Okay, let's just undo it. So yeah, that's how you can do it. How you can extract values from a column. You can either extract values one by one, or in case splitting would help you, you can use split column as well. You can also merge columns, which is the opposite of splitting a column. And I'm just going to fabricate this. Let's say I'm interested in combining this together. So you can add a new, like a custom column, and write your own formula. So for example, add column, custom column. Say location, was it? I think it was like this point, and then and latitude and space and longitude and like this. Yeah, I think yep, that's how it was before. I think almost just need a space here. Yeah, otherwise it's more or less the same. Here's a small trick. See, here it says ABC123. That's because the column type hasn't been set. So I can set it as a separate step, yes, text, or I can add another parameter here to table.addColumn, and so I will have the column type right away. This is a bit advanced. It's just for later when you are comfortable creating your own columns and you want to have fewer steps. That's how you can do it. Another way to merge columns, because this is not exactly column merging, it's just a custom column. Another way to merge columns is to actually select them like this, and then yeah, we could do it as a new column, or as like instead of these two columns, let's do transform merge column, and let's call it location. The separator, let's say, should be space, and select OK. As you can see, it's not exactly as it was before. It doesn't have this point, opening parenthesis, and closing parenthesis. So you could, if you want, format it and add prefix, point, and then while you could also do add suffix, I would just encourage you to modify the formula instead, like this. So we went back to the original state. I did it not because it makes business sense. I was just showing you how you can split a column and how you can merge a column, just in case you needed to do it. I'd like to show another way in which you could have extracted latitude and longitude. First, let me just go back to the original state. Yeah, I think here, yeah, this will do. Okay. Now also, maybe let me get rid of state province key, just so I have space. Okay. So what I can do is I can select add column, and I can select column from examples. And in this case, there are two options: from all columns or from selection. Now, in this case, I know that I want to create my column from examples from just one column, which is location. So I'm going to select from selection. However, if in your case, you need to involve more than one column or all columns in the table, then you could select from all columns. It's just that from selection will work better in some cases. So from selection it is. So what I need to do is I need to provide some sample values. And I'm gonna show you a few things here. So first of all, I can specify the new column name as is here. Second, I can select a cell and it will give me a preview. Actually, I could do it not just in this situation, pretty much anytime in Power Query, I can select a cell and it will show me a preview. So I'm doing it just so I can copy this value. So I'm gonna copy this and just paste it here, although, no, I don't want this open. Yep, okay, and press enter. So you see, I've only entered this one and it guessed that I want to add all the rest like this. How? Actually, here it has the formula. So that's the formula that it will use. Select OK. And let's do the same thing for longitude. So I'll just copy this. And again, add column from examples from selection. It's called longitude. Let's paste it here. And again, it is going to write the formula for me. So that's how I extracted. I just provided the sample values that I wanted to get. I could have done it slightly differently. So let's try it differently. Let's say I'm not interested in the full precision. So I'm just going to provide first few values. I'm going to try. So instead of all of them, maybe let's just keep 4 decimal places. You see, it hasn't yet guessed correctly what I'm trying to do. So let's provide some more sample values. No, actually, I didn't have to do it. I can just double click it and edit whichever value is suggested. So let's do this. Yep. So you see, this time, it's actually using a different formula. Text.middle, location 7, 8. So it means we're taking location, we're starting at index 7. So Power Query is using 0-based indexes. So actually that means the 8th character, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see, 5, 6, 7. Yep. So we're starting with the 8th character and we're getting 8 values. So perhaps it makes sense for this column because maybe it's always minus and then 2 numbers. I would need to see, let's see. Oh, you see, yeah, actually, in some cases, it's not working very well. So you would need to do some checks. I'm just saying for simpler cases, column from examples may work quite well. In any case, I've shown you already several ways to extract data from a column. Okay, the next thing I wanted to show is index column. So it's something that I've used before. So index column will add a new column that starts with some number and increments with each row with some predefined increment value. The default is starting with 0, incrementing with 1. Why would it be useful? So it basically gives you the row number. So in some cases, you may want to guarantee that rows are retained in some specific order or something like that, in that case, you may want to use the index column. Oh, by the way, something that I forgot to mention when we were talking about removing duplicates is that when you remove duplicates, then the order of rows is not guaranteed. As in, let's say there are 3 rows with green field and we're removing duplicates, you cannot be sure which row is going to be retained, like the first greenfield row or the last one or some middle greenfield row. It's difficult to predict. And so in case you want to control this, you could do some, say, ranking by using index and then get in the first row. Maybe it's a bit maybe advanced. Still, let me show you how I would do it. So what you could do is you could just keep, let me see, you could rank the rows for each city. So this is totally unscripted. I'm just showing you how I would do it in this specific case. Use index for each city and then only get the first one. Okay, let me show you. So I'm going to select transform, group by, and here, instead of count, just use that all rows, and the operation will be all rows. Select OK. So for greenfield, I can expand this, and you can see the rows. Oh, actually, sorry, I forgot one important thing. I should have added index right away. Add column, index. Yep. So now this guarantees the row order because I've numbered the rows. So now what I can do is group by index, transform, group by, min index. And then I would need to merge this with the previous step and then filter on the 0. Now I haven't yet got to merging, so maybe let me just duplicate this query. Let's call it city for later, because I just don't want to show you too much, something that I've wanted to show anyway. So let's save it a bit later. I'll finish this a bit later because I wanted to talk about grouping anyway. So with grouping, you saw me when I try to group, I can select the column to group by, or I could have grouped by multiple columns, for example, city and location. And then I could add some new columns. So these new columns, they could be some operations such as sum in case I had some numerical column, or I could count rows that are relevant for this combination of city and location, count distinct rows, or I could select all rows. So let's rename this. When you do all rows, then yeah, actually you see greenfield with this location has just 3 rows, so meaning 3 city keys. Although previously, when I grouped only by city, there were many more. And I can add more than one aggregation. For example, add min key, minimum city key, yeah. So yeah, which grouping I'm doing will depend on like my needs. I will show you just a bit later in this segment before the break how I can use this grouping with the minimum index to get the first row guaranteed. For now, I just wanted to show that it is possible to group rows, and it is also possible to get all rows for the grouping, which sometimes can be handy because, say, I want to number these rows. I want to do something with this table. Yes, it's possible. Let me just get rid of this min key just to make it cleaner. Okay. It's possible to do operations on this table. Let me just add column and table.add index column, all rows. Yeah, unfortunately, I have to write my own code, although this should not be a problem for you after this course, at least these kind of formulas. Actually, let's start with 1, increment with 2, and column type, or the type like this. All rows with index. Okay. All right. So what's the difference between this? It's the index column. See here, I have added a new column with index. It starts with 1, increments with 2 for every row. Seems like there is always, oh no, here are 4 rows. Yeah, so it is possible to do something with tables that are added as a result of grouping. Okay, there is a question in Q&A. Can you please explain remove duplicates once again? When you just removed duplicates from CD column, it worked differently. And when you added 2 columns, why did the number of rows change? Yes, okay. Let's go back to this step. Okay. So I was talking about removing duplicates, and I removed duplicates from CD, and I have 655 rows, 655. Now, if I remove duplicates not just from CD, but from CD location together, then I have 839 rows. Why is that? So that's because city can be like it can have the same city name may exist in different locations. Like I mentioned, in US there are many cities called Springfield. They're in different states. And so you shouldn't just take city as a unique identifier. You should take it with something else, such as city and state. For example, here we don't really have state. We do have location. So I'm taking city and location together as like a unique identifier of a city. So location in this case works as a way to differentiate between different city names, because like I said, the same city name may exist in different places. Now the next question is, okay, then when you remove duplicates based on city and location, why do you still have multiple city keys? Well, that's just how the data is. For whatever reason, there are different city keys for the same city. It's possible that the whole table of city in the original data source had some more columns, and those columns would have different values for the same city and location combination. That's my best guess anyway. Now, I was also saying that it's possible to remove duplicates from the entire table. And for that, you need to click this button here and select remove duplicates. And that's the equivalent of selecting all columns and selecting remove duplicates. See, when I selected all columns and then I selected remove duplicates, it didn't even add any column names here. It just removed duplicates from the entire column, sorry, entire table. All right, so that's that. Okay, next, let's talk about pivoting. So sometimes may be useful to pivot. Let me maybe try to find something, maybe targets. Let me see. Actually, targets would be a nice one. Yeah, let me just get rid of these steps that I've taken, and I'll expand this. So I'm just combining the files again from the same folder. Okay. Now let's say I want to transform this so that I have different, say, buying groups as columns. This is, again, a bit of a manufactured example just because this data is already in a good shape. However, in some cases, this may be a legitimate transformation. In case, let's say, you're working with financial transactions, and instead of, say, having revenue and cost of goods sold and profit as separate rows, you may want to have them as separate columns. That would be quite legitimate. So I'm showing you a way to do it just for when you need it. In this specific case, again, the shape is good. I'm just using this data just for example purposes. Anyway, how would you do it? So you need to select, I think, buying group, and then transform and pivot column here. Then you need to specify what is the values column. The values column is target excluding tax, millions, because that's what we want to see as values. And select OK. So now you can see we've got buying groups as columns, kind of what we wanted. Just imagine we have revenue, cost of goods sold, and profit here. And in case you're wondering why I think it's preferable to have revenue and cost of goods sold and profit as separate columns, well, that's because if I had them, okay, let me just rename this. It will be easier to show this way. Yeah, I just wish my actual values were in line with the names. Anyway, some columns may not be additive. So see, revenue minus cost of goods sold should equal to profit. And so if you took a sum of this column, then you wouldn't end up there. With a pivoted shape, though, it would make more sense because sum of the revenue column would give you revenue, sum of cost of goods sold would give you cost of goods sold, and so on. So I'm trying to say, in some cases, pivoting makes sense. And of course, when you are working with pivoted data, sometimes this shape doesn't make sense. So in this case, yes, okay. Let's say we're working with targets here. Yes, in this case, it doesn't make sense. So let me get rid of the first few rows. So I'll get rid of the first 3 rows, okay? And now I'm going to promote headers. So this shape is not good because, you see, January, February, so these months, they should be additive. I should be able to sum all the values at once, and if needed, then filter them. This shape doesn't allow it. So what I need to do is I need to unpivot. How do you do it? You can right-click buying group and select unpivot other columns. So now I have months as my column and value is another. Again, here, instead of renaming columns, I would encourage you to modify the formula. So instead of attribute, should be month. Instead of value, target. And yeah, we also have year target. So let's get rid of it. Right click, text filters, doesn't equal. And same with buying group total. Right click, text filters, doesn't equal. Yep, so this is now very good because we've got just months. There's no double counting. What else needs to be done here? I think with unpivoting, yeah, that's pretty much it. Except I just wanted to show you one more thing, which is not strictly related to unpivoting. It's just with this specific sheet. You saw that when I wanted to get rid of these top 3 rows, I selected remove rows, top rows, and then 3. Now you may wonder what's going to happen in case, say, somebody adds another column here or gets rid of these columns in the source file. Will the query still work? No, it may break. How do you protect against this? It is possible. Let's say, well, you still need some kind of anchor, right? So what I could use is, let's say, I assume that this column buying group will always be called buying group, and whatever comes before it is not relevant. So what I can do is, and this is advanced, I just want to show you this just so you know that these kind of things are possible. So I'm going to get rid of 3 here, and instead I'm going to type each column 1 not equals to buying group. So we're skipping those first rows where column 1 is not buying group. As it is, it seems like there is no difference. However, if I now remove first row, for example, my query still works. Whereas the previous way, it would break. Because yeah, if I just go back to 3 here, see, now I don't have month names. And yet with this one, it's more dynamic, so it still works. So that's pivoting and unpivoting. I've already shown you that you can transform some columns. So for example, when I was talking about query folding, I was showing you that you can trim, you can clean columns. You can also do some other things. So if you right click and select transform, you can change the case, like lowercase, uppercase, capitalize each word, extract the length. Also, if you had some nested JSON or XML values, then you could extract them in this way. See, it's not JSON, therefore yeah, there is an error. Otherwise, it would be possible. With the transformation, there are more things you can do from the ribbon. For example, you can extract and then first characters, just to make it say short month name. So say 3. So now we've got the short month names here. And there are other things you could do for different column types. For example, for date, you could extract month name. So not that we need it in this case, I'm just showing you, for example, month name like this. Sorry, month number. Or I could select start of month and so on. So it depends on the column type. The available transformations will be a bit different. And again, you can do it either in place, like in the column itself, or you can add a column. So I could add another column for, say, start of year. as possible. Okay, so that's column transformation. I could also show you again a custom column. Let's say I want to have year and month together as one column. Yeah, by the way, this will be useful. Something I should have mentioned earlier. So right now we have got month and year is a number. So if I just try month and space and year, then I'm gonna get an error. Why? Let's see. If I select this cell, I should get the error message. Yes, here it is. We cannot apply ampersand to types text and number. So there are a couple of ways of solving this. One is to merge columns. So it will take care of different types. So add column, merge columns, separator, space, okay. You see there is no error. Now you could do it differently, still by using custom column, month and space and text dot from. So explicitly convert year into text and select OK. So this also works. As is often the case, there's more than one way to do the same thing. If merging works for you, then yeah, you can use it. It's just that sometimes it may be undesirable because if you merge text with, say, null, then I think you're going to get a blank value, like an empty string. Let me test this. I'm just going to replace 2020 with nothing. With null, I mean. Okay, so what does the custom column do? Yep, that's null. However, if I combine, if I merge space, what will I get? I get January. So whichever way you choose will depend on your needs. See, there are differences. Okay, so that's yeah, basic transformations, and yeah, you saw me how to filter, add columns, remove columns, transform columns. Also, something I've shown quickly is how to replace values. So you can just right-click a value and select replace values and replace it with whichever value you want. Null is a special value, so it's not text, it's going to be an actual null. Okay, next thing I want to show is appending and merging tables. Just so, because we've covered transformations, now it makes sense we're covering combining tables. And very soon I will come back to my city query because there I will need to do some merging. So I will be able to complete my example with getting the first row when removing duplicates. So when you combine tables, pretty much there are two ways. One is to append tables and the other is to merge tables. If you have SQL background, appending is like union all and merging is like join. Except there are some small differences. So appending will basically stack tables vertically. And in case of Power Query, the order of columns doesn't matter, although the names do matter. Let me show you an example. So I'm gonna, maybe I should not have deleted those two files that I created in the beginning. I'll just connect to two target files. 2020, and maybe I'll just duplicate this 2025. No, actually it's the same file. I just duplicated it. Okay, this will do. All right, so we've got 2020 and 22. I can append them, and yeah, with both merging and appending, there are two ways, within the current query or as new. Let me just do it as new. So I'm going to select 2020 and 22. Okay. So as you see, the formula is simple: table.combine, and then there is a list of queries to append. They should be tables. The order in which they are combined determines the row position. So I could do the other way around, like this, for example. And like I was saying, the position of columns doesn't matter. So let me go here and just switch the column positions like this. So you see in 2020, targets is the second column, whereas in 22, it's the first column. If I go to append1, see, it doesn't matter. That said, if I rename a column, so maybe get rid of millions, and go to append1, see now there is a difference. So we've got this, and we've got this. Why? It's because the column names didn't match. So when you append queries, when you're doing something similar to union all in SQL, you must have the same column names. See why I was saying similar to union all, it's not the same. As far as I know, in SQL, for union all, the column names don't matter, the positions matter. You could have different column names, and yet if you're doing union all, as long as you have the same column types, the same number of columns, it will work well. Whereas here, as you can see, we're seeing some difference in column names, therefore we've got different columns, because Power Query doesn't rely on positions of columns at all. All right, so that's appending tables. Now let me show you merging of tables. Maybe let me start with city, because we've got state province key here, and we've got state province, which I'm just gonna drag here. State province also has a key, and it also has some useless columns that we don't really need. Okay, just to make it easier to see, it's not like we had to remove them. So this state province key is unique in this table, and in city it is not. So let's merge or something like join in SQL terms. So merge queries, city, and here let's do state province. We just need to select the columns that match in each table, matching columns. In each table, it's state province key, and it's just one column in each table. Just like in SQL joins, it's possible to use more than one column from each table without creating like a composite key. And so that is a bit different from how it's in the data model in Power BI. So if you've worked with Power BI before, you may know that to create a relationship, you need to have some column from each table that you can relate. If you had two columns from each table, then you would need to create a composite column and then create a relationship based on those new columns. With merging, it is possible to use more than one column. I'm just going to show you this as an illustration. It's not a real example based on this data, it's just an illustration. I could select, say, city here and state province here, and if I zoom in a bit, notice that here it says 1 and here it says 2. So it just shows the order of the matching columns. So it says that state province key from city is matching with state province key from state province, and city from the city table matches state province from the state province table. Like I said, in this example, it's not real, and that's why you have this selection matches 0 rows. So let's undo it. After we undo it, the match is perfect. Select OK. Now we've got the state province table is like a nested table, which we can now expand. We don't have to have state province key because we already have it. And we can untick this one and select OK. There is a bit of a bug. See, before we expanded this table, the column was called state province. It just so happens that within the state province table, there is a column called state province. So when we expand it, for whatever reason, it adds .1. So one way to fix this is to just change the formula. And it works. It's, yeah, an unfortunate bug. That's all. After that, you can get rid of the key because you don't need it anymore. And that's it. Notice that we've done the merge from the many side. We could do it from the one side as well. It's just that we would get more rows for each row. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to go to state province and merge it here. See, now it has 50 rows only. Although, if I select one of those rows, you see there are a lot of rows here. And so it's probably common to merge from the many side rather than one side, because then expansion is easier. You know that you only have one row in each, one nested row in each row, so you don't get like new rows. You control the row count a bit better this way. Okay, there is a question in Q&A. Is it possible to rename the applied steps name to a meaningful name? Yes, absolutely. It's actually something that I was doing previously. I just stopped doing this, even though I probably should have. So for example, instead of merge queries, maybe I can rename it to, I don't know, joined with city, like this, something like this. Or maybe remove columns. I could rename it to removed single value columns. Now, if this is not sufficient, you can also add comments. Right-click, properties, and in description, let's say we removed those columns that only have one value each. It's not useful for our analysis. Select OK. Now, there is this information icon here. If we hover comment, interesting, if I hover over the step, it includes the step name. If I hover over the information button, it's just a comment. Something new I learned today. Okay. There is another question in Q&A. If the rows in each table are 1000 rows, and if we append them, will the result show 2000 rows, or will it only show 1000 rows. Okay, I think I understand what you mean. You're asking if we're appending two tables, 1000 rows each, will we see those 2000 rows in the end, or will it be just 1000? I think the default preview is 1000. So even though when we load data, it will be 2000 rows, in the preview, unless we scroll, it will be just 1000 rows. Maybe I can try to illustrate. Here we enter data, A. Let's see, can I manufacture those rows? Table dot repeat. Yep, I've got, actually already it says 999 plus rows, which is technically correct because 1000 is 999 plus rows. Okay, let's just append the query with itself. Just don't see it. No, not targets. Table current. Yeah, you can append tables with itself. Yep. So I've appended it. Now there are 2000 rows. So if I do count rows, there are 2000 rows. Although in the preview, only this many. Although if I scroll, at some point, I should get to 2000. Yeah, luckily my mouse scroll works more or less well. Yep, I got to the bottom at the end. See, I've got 2000. So yeah, the preview still says 999 plus rows, although we do get 2000 if we scroll. All right, so I've talked about appending and merging. Now, actually, I'm ready to complete my example, CD. So just to recap, what I was going to do was I wanted to get the first row for each city and drop the rest. How you can do it? So you can do two things. First, you can add index. So that we've done. Doesn't matter whether it starts with 0 or 1, doesn't matter. We just wanted to number the rows to guarantee the row order. Then I grouped by city and added min index. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to merge it with itself. You'll see why in a bit. Just to make it easier for me to change the query. I want this, here. So I want the same table. So I'm going to merge based on city. Yes, so the mesh is perfect, of course. Then select OK. And now I'm going to change that. So instead of merging with itself, actually, I want to merge with the added index step. I forgot. No, it's not just by city. No, it's by city and min index. Yes. So now I'm going to change the formula. See, the formula structure is that table.nested_join expects the first table, then the matching columns, then second table, matching columns, and then the fifth argument is the new column name where the nest table is going to be. And last argument is the join algorithm. I'm going to talk about it in a bit. Anyway, for now, I just need to change this to edit index. And remember, when we added index, it wasn't called min index. It was called just index. So let's call it this, okay? And also the join algorithm, I forgot, it shouldn't be left outer, should be inner. Because we want to filter out things, right? Okay. So we've got 655 rows now, and we don't need this anymore. Actually, we don't even need index anymore. So now we've got unique city names, and we're sure that it's always the first available row for that city name because of how we've done it. So I've shown you that you can append a table with itself as well as merge with itself, just for the ease of writing the code. Yes, I could have created a custom step and written the formula myself. By merging the table with itself, I made it a bit easier for me. Actually, when you keep duplicates, the formula is very similar. Let me get rid of this, maybe even this. Let's keep duplicates, reduce rows, keep duplicates. And here's the crucial thing. Yeah, here the condition is greater than 1. If we change this to 1, the interesting thing is that this way we will get those cities that are unique. Let's see if there are any. And actually, no, there aren't any. There's no city that has just 1 row. But yeah, we could have changed the formula so that we would only get the first row. It's just that it's a bit more involved, probably easier the way we've done it before. Yeah, anyway, that's appending and merging tables. And the last bit in this section that I want to show is parameters. Parameters can be useful when, let's say, you want to specify how many rows you want to keep in different tables just for development purposes, or if you want to parameterize the folder path, or if you want to create some template file, as an example, analysis of log files for different users. Maybe something that people can relate to in corporate environments is parameterizing the folder path. So let's say I'm working with my local files. So if you look at any source step, you will see it says C, users, Daniel, downloads, and so on. If I give this file to my colleague who also has a copy of those same files except in different folder, then these queries will break even though she has those files. It's because those files are in different folder. So how can you address this? You can parameterize the folder path. Let's say this downloads. Let's say this is the folder that contains my course materials. We can parameterize this part. How? We can create a parameter. Here, see manage parameters. Let's select new parameter. Let's call it folder path. It's important to select the type if you intend to change it in the Power BI service. So for current value, let's just copy this. And let's get rid of targets. For description, we can include something like folder path to course materials, including trailing slash, like this. Okay. Right now with targets, yes, because I have lots of queries, unfortunately, that means I would need to go through all of them. However, I just want to show you the principle. So city, for example, no, targets, let's do targets. Source, let's change this, and folder path. All right, I cannot change it now, but okay. So what I can do is can do folder path and targets. Yep, this works. Okay. Now, to test this, let's copy this somewhere else, like I don't know, new folder test. Okay. And by the way, something I forgot to mention with parameters, let's just manage it. You can specify suggested values. So let's say a list of values. So we can add this one, and let's this one. And like you can get the folder path from your colleague and copy it here so that all she needs to do is just change it from the drop-down list. Let's say the default one is going to be this, and current value also this. Select OK. So targets works as it is. Now let's just go to the test folder, and so we can compare. Let's get rid of one file. Okay. So we've got 4 files now because we're still pointing to the original location. Now let's change the folder path from the drop-down list to test. Now let's go to targets. Source step. Now we only have 3 files. That's because we changed the parameter, and the parameter is used in the folder path. So this way you could control, folder path dynamically. Yes, you would need to go through all the queries and update it. However, once you do it, or if you've done it up front, then at least you and your colleague could swap the folder path very quickly and work on the same file together, as an example. And of course, you can use parameters for different purposes, such as you could specify, for example, the minimum date in each table. So if you're, say, connecting to some sales table in a database, and then maybe some sales promotions table, so a different table in the same database, and you're only interested in data from the 1st of January 2025, you could create a parameter with this date value and use it for filtering. So when you filter, say, date, you could do date filters, and then unfortunately there is no after or equal to. However, it is here, after or equal to, and then instead of an actual value, you would be able to select a parameter. See, it's just that it's not available here because we don't have any. Let me create a parameter, type date, let's call it start date, current value, like this. Now let's go to the date table. See, now this button appeared. Now we can select parameter and start date. Right, because actually the date table doesn't contain 2025. If I change it to 2022, I should have something at least. Yep, that's right. So this filter has been applied correctly now. All right, I think that's more or less all I wanted to cover in this section. If you have any questions, please post them in Q&A. I'll be sure to address them after the break. Otherwise, let's have a 10-minute break, and I'll see you after the break to finish with the 3rd segment. Welcome back, everyone. I'm going to start another pulse check. If you could please respond, I'll appreciate it. Maybe I'll give it a few more seconds. In the meantime, I'll reshare my screen. Yeah, I can see people are responding. Thank you. All right, so I'll start with a quick recap of the previous segment where we've learned some basic transformations which were related to, say, filtering and removing columns, adding columns in different ways, manipulating the table by pivoting, unpivoting, also transforming columns like replacing values, trimming, cleaning, all that. Also, we've talked about two main ways to combine tables. That's appending and merging. Appending is similar, not the same as union all in SQL. And merging is similar to joins in SQL. I said that for appending, the main thing is column names. The positions of columns don't matter. And for merging, I pointed out that it is possible to merge by more than one matching column in each table, which is different from creating relationships in the data model. And finally, I talked about parameters, and I've shown an example how you can use a parameter to parameterize a folder path. So you can change the folder path to files between you and your colleagues' folder path in a couple of clicks for more than one query. Now we're in section 3, where we're going to talk about some freehand writing of Power Query M code. We'll start with advanced editor and discuss complex data types you may encounter in Power Query, such as lists and records, and finish off with custom functions in M. Before I start, there is a question in Q&A. If we have table 1 with columns emp ID and emp name, and table 2 with columns emp ID and city, how to get combined output with all 3 columns emp ID, name, and city? Okay, I would say it would depend on whether you expect the data to match perfectly, or maybe there could be some blanks, missing values. Anyway, let's assume that you start with emp ID and emp name, and you just want to add city, and maybe sometimes city could be missing. That's okay. You would follow the same pattern as I was showing with city and state province. So here, let's just let's duplicate this, and just for example purposes, I will rename this to emp ID as in the question, emp ID and emp name. And in the other table, you said you have emp ID and city. So I'll get rid of this and make it like this, okay? So what you need to do is combine, merge queries, and where is it? CT2 somewhere. Yeah, that's right. You merge by emp ID. The join kind, you should probably keep left outer as the default. See, there are descriptions available. So you'll keep all from first, which is your all employee list, and machine from second. And then you just expand to city. So you select this double arrow button and keep city, and you don't have to use original call name as prefix. So in this way, you have emp ID, emp name, and city all in one table. After you do this, notice that you don't need to load this other table anymore. If you right click and select enable loading, this will actually disable loading, and notice that now it's in italics. So this signifies that this after you select close and apply. So hopefully this answers the question. All right, let's start this next segment. Start with advanced editor and M. Like I said before, the language of Power Query is called M, also known as Power Query Formula Language. It is functional and it's case sensitive. To get started with the language itself, I encourage you to change the formula bar from time to time, just like I was showing. Remember when we talked about selecting columns, I added a parameter here and there, or when I unpivoted or pivoted, I changed values myself. So when I unpivoted, by default, you would get attribute and value. So instead of renaming the columns, I changed the formula. Also, let me show you a different example, something I haven't shown before. Let me see what would be a good example. Yeah, actually, it doesn't matter too much. I can just use this one for educational purposes. So let's transform and trim. So by default, it's just text.trim. You could change it to each trim like this. So right now it's the same as before, so it's equivalent. What I could do though is I could provide the values that I want to trim. So let's say I want to trim A and I want to trim J, right? See, now January became January. If I look at other values, see, June, July, April, August, they were affected. So I provided some extra parameters to text.trim so that those are the values I want to trim, because by default, text.trim trims spaces, and maybe there's something else I want to trim. Maybe some better example would be parentheses. Remember how we had city with locations? So if I had, if I didn't have point, I could trim the parentheses, and this is especially relevant when the values aren't formatted consistently. Let me show you an example. Maybe I'll just place this with same value, except like this. So you see here, a closing parenthesis, although here I do. So if I wanted to make everything consistent, I couldn't just, remove the last character. Although if I trim with the parentheses, I can make it consistent. Because, data is not always perfect. It's not always coming from some sample database that is real world data could be messy. And so this is one way you could use the second parameter in text.trim. Anyway, the advice overall is that you should try to use the formula bar whenever you get a chance. This way, overall, like over time, you get more comfortable with writing your own code, and with time, you'll be fine with even advanced editor. And of course, you should create your own custom columns. That is also another way to write your code. When I was talking about advanced editor previously, I'll show you in a bit. I just want to point out beforehand that, again, like you saw, each step has a formula. Now, where would you see all the formulas at once? That's in advanced editor. So it's here. So let's open it. So here we have all the formula steps along with the step names. Plus, there's also let in. See, let in. It's important that after in, you use the last step. So replaced value here and replaced value here. Otherwise, the steps will not show properly. So in some cases, Power Query will group the initial navigation steps into one step. Otherwise, it's one step is one formula. What I mean is, notice here we have navigation, and that is not exactly the same as in Advanced Editor, because in Advanced Editor, between source and promoted headers, you have something called CD sheet. So it's just one exception to the general rule where one step has one formula. Actually, if I go to where I think dim product, yep, dim product. Let's see, between source and filtered rows, what do we have? Actually, we have two steps in Advanced Editor. That's because, like I said, Power Query sometimes groups initial navigation steps into one step. Anyway, this is just an exception. Here's what I meant when I said that after in, you should have the last step. Here we have clean text as the last step. If we put trimmed text after in, it will work. Yes, it's just that it's no longer displayed correctly. It's all combined into, one formula in formula bar. And that's not very user-friendly because you can no longer step through intermediate results like this. So when you write your own code, just be aware of that and try to use the last step as the output for in. Also, just so you know, yes, it is possible to use some kind of formula after in. Yes, it also works. Again, you have the same problem. You don't have individual steps listed under applied steps. All right, so that's briefly about Advanced Editor and M. The next thing I wanted to talk about is complex types. First, what is a list? A list is an ordered collection of values denoted by braces. We have seen lists before. Actually, even here, here, more specifically, it's a list of lists, and inside we have three values inside one of the lists: French product name, text clean, and type text. That's because table.transform columns expects its parameters in some specific way. Also here, when we removed other columns, it's also a list. Actually, we can change it. Let's maybe get rid of these columns. Yeah, see, it's a list. So braces, opening brace here, closing brace here. That means it's a list. Values can be like inside, there can be values of any type, including complex types, such as other lists and so on. It's possible to combine lists by using ampersand. Maybe let me just copy this onto a new step, so you'll see what it looks like. Yeah, so this is what a list looks like. It's not a column. See, it says list. I could add something here by using ampersand. Yes, it also needs to be a list. It works. There are various functions to work on lists as well as generate them. Maybe let me show you an example of how you can create a date table or a calendar table by using list functions. Let me maybe create a new query, blank query, and here we'll start with just maybe first of, actually no, let's create a calendar dynamically for the current year and the past 2 years. So we'll start with date time local. Now that's just a function that returns current date time. Then let's wrap it into date time.date just to extract the date. So this way we know that today is the 12th of June. It's because I'm based in Australia, Sydney, and right now is already the 12th of June, just in case you're in a different time zone. That's why it's showing the 12th of June. For you, it may be showing 11th of June. Anyway, this is going to be our source. Now let's do date end of year. And this is going to be our end date. And let's do date add days 1. So this is going to be the next day after end of year. However, that's not what I want. I actually want date add years and -3. So this way I added a day and I deducted 3 years so that I have start date of 1st of January 2023 and my end date is 2025, which is what I wanted because I wanted 3 years. Let's call it start date. Next, let's add another step and let's calculate how many days there are. No, actually, minus end date. No, it should be the other way around, right? End date minus start date. Okay, and that's duration. Let's just extract duration days. 1095. So that's days. Actually, we'll need to add 1 so that we get all the days. Finally, we are ready to generate a list of dates. List dates. Start date, days, and should be duration. So this hashtag duration 1 and 3 zeros just means 1 day. So that's the increment. Okay, so we've got a list of dates from 1st of January 2023. Let's sort it in descending order. Yep, up to 31st of December 2025. Good. Now let's just rename it to list dates. And we can transform it to table now, just by using the ribbon. So that's one way to do it. If you are comfortable with M code, there's another way, the way that I like more. Let's do it as hashtag table. It's a bit advanced, I know. I'm just showing you so you know it's possible. It's called type table date equals date. So this way we both define the column name and the data type. Now this will make no sense. It's just something you need to remember. That's the very short way to transform a list into a table with a nice name and column type. That's the shortest way that I personally know. Maybe there is something even shorter. That's the way. If you didn't want to write your own code, you could again do to table, and then you would just need to do date here and date. So you see, these three steps are arguably much longer than the step that I wrote myself. This will do though. Starting from here, we can add columns such as month, although we could transform it, we could rename it to month number, then month name, maybe just give it as month like this, and year, and so on. So you can see I have just built a calendar table dynamically based on today's date with several columns. I can add many more columns if I want. Thing is, I have used a list function, and that is list.dates. So generated starting from the start date. It generated this number of days, and the duration was day, which is why I know it's days. If I specified 2, it would be, see, every second day, although it would be way more than 3 years. Anyway, it's not a good calendar anymore because there would be gaps. In a calendar, you're supposed to have no gaps. So that's why I kept it like this. So yeah, that's an example of how you can use lists. So in addition to just providing parameters to some functions, you can work with lists by themselves. The next thing I want to talk about is records. A record is something you may have seen before as well. So key value pairs denoted by brackets are records. A key has to be unique. You can combine records by ampersand as well. Maybe let me show you some examples. Again, I'll create a blank query. Let's call it name equals Daniel and year equals 2025. So if you look at this, you may remember that when we extracted the first row from the list of files in the targets folder, that's what it looked like, because it was a record. Because what is a table? A table is, in the end, a list of records. Let me try to find this example again. All right, I got rid of it. But that's okay. I can, again, do it. Let me just duplicate this. Yeah, so if I do table first, then this is a record. It's a record that is the first row of the source table. Same thing. I was saying that keys have to be unique, and you can combine records by using ampersand as well. So if I do, say, and, actually, let me rather do this. So I go back to this query, okay, and I'll create a new step. And yeah, unfortunately, when you have spaces or some special characters in your query names, you have to use this kind of notation with hash and quotes. So this, I think it's called quoted identifier. So I'm combining my source step with this query, which is now a record. So that's a very good example, because here I have name and year 2025. Let me go to targets too. Here I don't have year, so it's all combined into 9 fields. So see here at the bottom, actually, see it says 2 fields. If I go to targets, it says 8 fields. However, I have name in both. Name here. And sorry, I should have shown a different query. Anyway, the name is common in both, and we keep the value from the latest record. So if I combine them in a different order, so now name is 2020.csv. If I do it the other way around, then you see it says name Daniel. So the last value survives. So yeah, if keys overlap, the latest value will be used. You will also sometimes see, or you may sometimes see, records in tables. Let's go to invoices here. Let me see. I think I've got something here. Actually, no, I think it's in a different table. Let me go to, I think it's order details, maybe. Okay. Scroll across. Yes. So here we have records for order and product. If we just click the cell, we can see what's inside. So we can see the fields available. We can expand them. It's kind of like expanding a table. It's just that a record is guaranteed to have no more than one row. Like it could be null, then yeah, it's still one row. In case of a table, though, it's not guaranteed. So a table may expand into multiple rows. So it may change the row count. Although a record can be expanded without changing the row count. Okay. Let me show you some other example, maybe. Oh, actually, we will have another example for records a bit later when we talk about custom functions. So yeah, for now, I think this this will do. Yeah, with the other complex type, which is a table, yeah, I've already said that a table is a collection of rows and columns. So you can think of it as a list of records, and tables can also contain other types as values inside. Like for example here, this is a table and some column contains records. So yes, complex types can contain inside them other complex types. In other words, complex types can be nested. Now the next thing I'd like to show you is custom functions. And this is, I would say, the culmination of today's course, because we will see quite a few concepts at play. In short, though, you can create a custom function when you want to perform the same action multiple times. And importantly, you don't want to repeat your code. So let me create an example, new source, blank query. Let me open Advanced Editor, and I'll just add one line to make it a function number, and then goes to. This is called goes to as far as I'm aware. Now I'm gonna write add 1 equals number plus 1 and multiply by 2 equals and 1 times 2, and the result should be, yeah, last step. Okay, let's call this function something, I don't know, add 1 multiply by 2. Actually, let's say the prefix f. Okay, all right, let's invoke it with 3. So what do we expect to see? 3 plus 1, that's 4, multiplied by 2, that's 8. Should be 8, right? Yeah, it returns 8. So this is an example of a custom function. Now maybe this specific function is a bit basic. So let me show you something slightly more useful. And that is querying an API. So some people are interested, like, how can I get data from an API? So if you're using some, say, REST API, then you're getting data from web effectively. It's just that sometimes getting data from an API is a bit more involved. So I've got an example. Let me just try to search for it. It should be FDA tobacco problem API. Okay, see, this is, yeah, that's the endpoint, yes. Yeah, good. Okay, let's just take this URL and go to Power Query, new source, web, and just paste it here. Select OK. Okay, so we've connected to this API, and Power Query tried to do something to make the results usable, because when you just connect, you get something like called meta and results. Actually, let me show you this in the browser, what it looks like, because we can see it. So this is what we get. So that's what Power Query reads. You can see it has meta here and results here. If I go to Power Query, what it does is it just expands everything so that we have something we can try to work with. As it is, it's not very useful because it's just one row. So to get more rows, we need to add some parameters. Actually, somewhere it should say how many records there are in total. Oh, here it is. Meta results total, 1, 2, 6, 5. So this is how many records this API contains, although it only gives us 1. That's because its default parameters, skip and limit, which we have not included, are 0 and 1. So we skipped no records and we're limiting to 1. So we could change the limit and get more records. It's just that I think the limit is 500 at most. So you cannot get all the records at once. Like, I don't think you can do 2000. Therefore, we will need some way to get all the records from this API dynamically. I have seen people hard code values, and that's not a good way because, right now, yes, we have this many records. Later, we may have more. Okay, maybe if you do like 3 queries, you will get all records for now until there are more. Yes, you could, preemptively do more calls. That's not a good way. A good way is to do it dynamically so that you get all the records no matter what. And I'm gonna try to show you how. So my plan of attack is to try to get the total number of records in some value, and then based on that, I will call the API progressively. Now, if you are paying attention to what I was talking about previously, I was talking about custom functions, and I was saying you can use custom functions to avoid repeating the same code multiple times. Like when you want to do something multiple times and you don't want to repeat yourself, you can employ a custom function. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I would like to create a custom function to call the API, and then I'm going to call it multiple times. Now let's create a function first. So maybe I'll get rid of all the steps. Actually, do I need to? Yeah, that's okay. I'll just use this result as is. So what I need to do is I need to create a function that gives me this. So for now, I can just keep it as a function with no parameters, although what I need to do is I need to parameterize skip, because the default is 0, then I want to skip it by the limit, such as 500. Then the next time I skip, it should be 500, right? Because first it's 0, then 500, then 1,000, and then nothing. I should be done with calling the API. So I want to parameterize skip. What do I do? Maybe let me see. I'll just expand this. Yeah, okay, this will do. Although, no. Yeah, maybe it wasn't such a bad idea to let Power Query expand all this. Okay, let me get rid of this and I'll reconnect just so it's a bit easier to see. I'll go to the first step and I will add the parameter. So this API reference is limit equals 5. It's also possible to add the skip value. We'll do it. So just for test, skip equals say 5 and limit equals 10. Let's see what the results are. So I've got 10 records. Good. Let's see, have I skipped 5? Yes, I have skipped 5. So we want to parameterize these two values, this 5 and this 10. Let's go to TridentZ editor. Actually, let's duplicate this and let's call it fcall API. All right. This time we will not need all this. Okay. So let's create these two parameters. So skip limit, and then goes to. Something I should have mentioned before was parameters can be of some expected data type, such as, say, number or text or something. They can also be optional or both. I mean, they could be optional and of some expected type. Although once you declare an optional parameter, all the rest have to be optional. All the rest, like the remaining parameters. Here I'll just keep it simple, unless somebody's interested specifically in these extra options. I'll keep it with just no data types and all mandatory. So we'll need to think, what do we expect skip and limit to be? Well, I think we expect them to be numbers because we will need to do some mathematical operations with them, such as, we expect maybe, add skip and limit together, or maybe text would be okay, unless we needed to, to do some mathematical operations. Actually, I think we will need to do something. So let's think their numbers. However, this here expects text. So we'll need to convert them to text. First, let's do skip text equals text from skip. And same thing for limit. And here we can do it like this. And same for limit. All right. So let's, yeah, even though it says optional, that's not the case. Yeah, we cannot do much without these values. Actually, we could, yeah, maybe let me show you. We could provide default values. Default should be 0. And we can use the coalesce operator. So this double question mark is a coalesce operator, meaning if skip is available, if it's not null, then use skip. Otherwise, use this value, for example. Same for limit, except it should be 1. Default value should be 1. Okay, if I invoke it now, it should work. Yep, it works. I've got meta and results and total. Good. Actually, that's what I want. I do want the total, so I'm gonna drill down into total. And maybe let's think somewhere I want to provide my limit. Limit should be 500, okay? Now let's calculate how many calls I need to make. So I'm gonna create a new step. Let's do number dot integer divide. I expect 3, right? So I should divide it by limit, which is 500, plus 1. Because integer divide will give me 2, because this divided by 500 as integer will be 2, so I will need to add 1. If I don't do it, if I don't add 1, then I will not cover everything. So 3. So this is how many times I will need to call the API. Num API calls, like this. Let's create another step, and this time list numbers. It's similar to list.dates that I used to create a calendar before, just from, not dates, but from numbers it will be. So start will be 0, because that's my skip value. Count will be num API calls, yes, and increment should be limit, which is 500. And so my skip values are 0, 500, and 1000. Good. Now, let's convert this to table. And let's add a column. Call API. Skip should be column 1. Yeah, I should have renamed it. Actually, no. I should set an example, right? I should act like a role model. So let's transform this and custom column. Skip. So this is our column. And for limit, let's just use limit, which is our earlier step. We can still reference it. API call. Okay. So we call the API 3 times now. Now, let's expand results. List. Actually, we don't need this anymore. So let's expand to new rows. And yeah, let's just expand everything. Okay, so looks like we're getting something. Good. Now let's count the rows. Transform, count rows. And yeah, we've got 1, 2, 6, 5. So we have just used a custom function to call the API successfully. Just to recap, what we've done was we had skip and limit as our parameters. We converted each to text, and we used some default values in case skip and limit were nulls. Then we used these text values of parameters in the source step, which is calling the API. Now, a bit of a note here. Now, this will not refresh in the Power BI service. And if you're working with API, you need to be aware of this. Why will it not refresh? That's because this URL is dynamically constructed in a way that Power BI doesn't really like. And so it will refresh in Power BI desktop. It will not refresh in the Power BI service. How do you fix it? You can. You just need to write it in a slightly different way. You need to use query parameters. Let me split this, actually, so it's easier to see. Call API, call API. Okay, as JSON. This is not something you need to do. I'm doing it strictly to make it easier to follow. That's all. So we need to change this. Okay, so we'll keep it like this. And we need to use query options. So in query options, we query equals. Here, we also have equals text, and skip equals. Yeah, the order doesn't matter in this case. What matters is that we have these query options. So let's get rid of this. Okay, I think this should work now. At least I hope so. Let's see. Yes, it does work. Yes, it's all good. So to make it refreshable in the Power BI service, you need to write your web requests in this way instead of using ampersands with your URL. Then it will be refreshable. All right, what else? Yeah, maybe that's more or less all I wanted to cover. I'll just show you a couple of tricks. One is, so instead of converting to table and then adding custom column, I could have done something slightly different. Yeah, maybe let me get rid of all this. Yeah, skips, better name. Okay, I could create a new step, and that's what I would do personally. Transform. It should be each f call API. The underscore is for the current value in the list. So it will be 0, 500, or 1,000. And limit is just, limit from the first. So this limit is from here. So it's not special. All right, you see now we have a list of records. Good. Then the next thing that I would do, API calls. Next thing, instead of expanding this somehow, I would just do table from records. Tables. And here, yeah, I could do it like this, or here's another way. Just create a new step. So this way, you just get one column. You can do it also by using the user interface. Right-click and drill down. How do you combine? Again, table.from records, like this. And if we review the code, yeah, maybe I should have saved the previous version. You can just tell that this code is much shorter. Yes, the user interface in a lot of cases makes it simple for you to do things. Yeah, it's just that when you write your own code, then chances are you can write it shorter and in a dynamic way and less prone to some errors that may happen in the future because something in data changes. Such as, remember the example with getting the latest file from a folder. When I tried to do it the first time, when I just clicked, it hard-coded the file name. So that's not what I wanted. I had to write my own code to actually make it the last available file. So yeah, I just wanted to show again the value of knowing Power Query formula language. If you want to know more about the language itself, then you could try reading my book. Again, it's available for free on O'Reilly through your subscription. Pretty sure it's available in, through a link on the course page. This course page. So you should get a link there, or you can just find it by using my name on O'Reilly. Yeah, I think that's all. What else? I think that's all I wanted to cover, actually. So maybe if you have any questions, yeah, let me know. Maybe I'll wait for a minute or so. I'll answer any remaining questions. Otherwise, maybe we'll wrap up a bit later. Something I'd like to mention. So the course producer, Ellen, at the beginning of this course mentioned that you're going to get some survey, feedback survey. I'll personally greatly appreciate it if you fill it out, because I'm trying to make my courses better over time, and any feedback is going to be valuable to me, because otherwise, how do I know how to improve? So if there's something you would like me to do, something I haven't done before, or if there's something that I should stop doing, yeah, let me know. Or even if there's something I'm already doing and you think that's good, I should keep doing it, yeah, that would be great. Any feedback will be valuable. I'll appreciate it. Okay, looks like we don't really have any questions in Q&A, so maybe, Ellen, we could wrap up if you're there.
Yes, no problem. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you to everyone who participated in today's live course. We hope that you benefit from it and enjoy the rest of your day.